Welcome to the Include panel. My name is Hector Minto. I'm the lead technology evangelist for Microsoft. And we're going to talk for the next 45 minutes about skills challenges within organizations of all types and how accessibility is really starting to become this emerging desirable skill set that sits within organizations. Personally, I've worked in the AT world for over 25 years now. And more that I learn, it's not the technology, it's the knowledge of the technology, and it's the knowledge of how to get confident around setting technology up with people with disabilities in organizations of all types. Now, I'm delighted that we have such a varied panel. You're going to get to meet my guests in a moment. But essentially, this is no one sector's challenge. This is going to come from a mix of government, not-for-profits, companies, thinking about their own motivations to drive knowledge of accessibility and assistive technologies within their world. And so I really want you to take away, the different approaches and why they're taking that approach, given the type of organization they are. And with that, I'm going to introduce my brilliant panel. So I'm just going to ask each of you just to introduce yourselves and who you work for. So we're going to start with you, Martha.
Thank you, Hector. I'm Martha Jackson. I am the newly appointed Executive Director for the Center for Workplace Accessibility and Inclusion at the Office of Talent and Workforce Development in the City of New York. And yes, it's a lot of words. I had just started really in January, but I've been working on this project for accessibility and inclusion for multiple years and partnering with many city agencies over the past 2 years. I'd come from the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, where I actually created the first public-private partnership for workforce development for New Yorkers with disabilities in partnership with, again, multiple city agencies, private businesses, state vocational rehabilitation agencies, and the private sector. I'm very pleased to be here.
Thank you, Martha. And then I'm going to turn to Laura.
Thank you so much, Hector. So I'm Laura Davis. I'm the Chief Executive for the British Association for Supported Employment and Inclusive Trading, CIC. We're a national members charity that represents about 350 members across the UK that are all supporting disabled, neurodivergent and disadvantaged talent into really good careers. It's got a really rich evidence-based model that surrounds the work that we're doing. And it's wonderful because we get to support individuals, communities and business to think about how do they access the most amazing talent from all parts of our community. I'm also the mother of 3 neurodivergent young people, which I think is the other hat that I can bring to the table today.
That's a pretty important hat, Laura, so we'll get more into that. And our final guest is Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Hector. Hi, everyone. So my name's Chris Porter. I'm a people and culture or human resources professional. I work for BP, the energy organization, and we have people in over 60 countries, tens of thousands of people. And my mission at BP, one of my missions is to make sure that we've got an accessibility-friendly workspace and a very inclusive culture. So that's part of my mission at BP. I spend a lot of time designing and planning for this. And then also in my spare time, I'm the trustee of a charity who supports people with profound disabilities. I also grew up with 2 brothers who were neurodiverse. So I've got a good range of experiences with people who have accessibility needs, and it's kind of what I love most of all about my job.
Fantastic. So look, what a panel, firstly. Different styles of organizations, different drivers. So Martha, I'm going to come to you first. I'd really like you just to explain some of the work you're doing and essentially kind of what the aims are of the program that you're building.
Thank you, Hector. So the Center for Workforce Accessibility and Inclusion is a very new initiative in the City of New York. It's 2 streams, really. One is to create more opportunities for people with disabilities in the workforce. And the other really is to address the structural barriers. What is it that's keeping people from the workforce? But we need to look at ourselves first. And so we are looking internally at the City of New York because we really want to be a role model or a model employer for for New York City, but also on a national level as well. One of the things that we are taking on is really understanding what the barriers are for New York City employees when it comes to accessibility and inclusion. And the number one thing is that we know that the 280 or more thousand employees in New York City are not aware of the tools that exist to create more accessible documents, events, social media. We're a big city, and this is a big deal, and we need to kind of really lead the way. And so in our partnership with Microsoft, we've discovered that we have the tools that we need to be able to train the workforce that we have. And now we're in the process of really trying to figure out how do we do this. We did a few pilot projects that were enormously successful. And I think one of the reasons that they were successful is not just because there's a city council law that says that everything must be made accessible in the city of New York, but the humanity behind it. So if we don't have humanity behind the law, if we don't really think about all of us together, the city, the people that work in the city should look like the people that live in the city. We should really be the ones leading the charge. And now we understand we have the tools to do it. And that's our next step, is making sure that we're able to train as many individuals as possible on a variety of different accessibility tools. And then we'll move the city forward in the way that we should.
Wow, Martha, there's so much I could pick up on, but I think there are two things that probably resonate with me most. One is this cultural aim that you have, that yes, this is learning and this is knowledge, but the driver for it is to recognize the kind of the culture that you espouse. And then there's the second piece, is that humility of government to say, we're not telling you to do this, we're doing this with you. We're going to go on our own learning journey with you. How can you ask anybody to jump onto this just as like an edict? It's not an edict, it's we all can benefit from spending time on this topic. And it really, that passion really rings true. We'll come back to more of this conversation around the importance of culture as a driver for this learning. But I'd like to turn to you now, Laura. It's been one of the thrills for me this year to kind of do so much work with you and to recognize how Microsoft can get engaged in supported employment and how passionate your audience are for this accessibility knowledge. I think this is going to really ring true with people. So let's hear a bit more about what you're up to.
Thank you, Hector. I think if I just set the scene a little bit around kind of what supported employment even is, because I know for lots of people that can mean different things to different people. So the supported employment model has been around since about the 1970s and was originally designed for people with a learning disability or autism. But we actually know now that it's a really rich model that can work for anybody for whom the mainstream routes to recruitment don't work. It's based on 5 stages, on high aspiration, on a belief that anybody can work with the right job, the right support, and if they're motivated to do so. But even that motivation piece, you kind of have to unpick that. The numbers of people I've worked with whom, you talk about, are you motivated? And they might say no, but that's because people have only ever spoken to them about being a cleaner, for example. So actually, when you open up the world of possibility to people, it's amazing how that kind of aspiration and motivation can grow. The model itself, as I say, is based on 5 stages, with stage 1 being about going out and engaging people, really raising that ambition and aspiration about work being possible, but also being hopeful and based on people's strengths. Stage 2 is about vocational profiling, which is where you build a really rich picture of an individual and who they are and their strengths and passions. And then equally going out and engaging with business. I love the model because it isn't just focused on the person themselves. It's focused on, what does business need? And we know across the UK, for example, we've got 1.3 million job vacancies at the moment. And this is a model that is absolutely focused on them as well. So then completing something called a job analysis, which is around everything about that business as well. So what's your workplace culture like? What are your ambitions? What are the barriers and your fears or struggles that you're having in terms of thinking about how you recruit a more diverse workforce? And then you take those 2 tools and you put them together. So then you provide that really good matching. This isn't just about any old job for anyone. This is about making sure that it's a career pathway that matches both the individual strengths, but also the needs of that business. And then we get to the final stage, which then really links into the wonderful work that we're doing with Microsoft at the moment. And the final stage is about in-work support and career development. Now, I started my career over 20 years ago, actually as a job coach. And the role of a job coach is hugely important. Their role is about going in and working with both the individual and the employer to layer up those skills and to be that bridging gap between where somebody's at and where they want to be, but also helping to break down those barriers and think about how do we fully integrate people into organisations. It's about empowering everyone. So the job coach will empower the individual, but will also empower their colleagues around them around how do you make sure that people become a fully kind of embedded member of that community. And then thinking about their career development. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not doing the same job I did when I was 17. I was giggle about it. I was rubbish. I was a waitress. I wasn't very good at it. And actually, we need to have those same aspirations for disabled and neurodivergent people. Let's not high five each other just because we get them a job. Let's think about where do you want to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time. And so that all important role that job coach plays in terms of integrating and supporting people to flourish in the workspace. But what we kind of identified is, as a sector, we are so focused on people and thinking about how do we bridge that gap between individuals and empowering them. But actually our technical knowledge was pretty poor. And I include myself in that group. So this is not me kind of looking outwardly. I'm looking inwardly and going, I always said, I'm all about the people. But actually, it became really clear to me that tech was going to be hugely important in terms of building a sustainable model, a model where we really do encourage people to be as independent as possible. And that's the role of a job coach, ultimately. I had the best time when I got to say, you don't need me anymore. You don't need me anymore. You're just part of your business community. And so we were incredibly pleased to be able to work with Microsoft as the non-for-profit tech accelerator program. And it's kind of done twofold. So as a charity, people will probably recognize that actually we didn't have systems and processes in place that would enable us to kind of really think about how we support our membership to harness the kind of tech that's out there. We were using a lot of paper-based ways of working, and actually recognise that in order for us to be able to get the level of training out to the sector that we wanted to, we were going to need some support to have a platform to be able to deliver that. And so it's been incredibly exciting for us as what I call a very small but a mighty charity, to be able to build a training platform that has a portal within it, which is absolutely transforming the way that we're going to be able to work as a charity, and will get us back to doing the thing that we talked about at the beginning, which is people. Because at the moment we're spending a lot of time dealing with paperwork, and actually we can focus our time on having the greatest impact for disabled and neurodivergent people. So what that training platform is going to enable us to do is to train 10,000 frontline workers in both the accessible tech, but also in supported employment. And I think the beautiful thing about this is when you bring the two together, when we have those frontline workers that understand how everyday accessible tech is going to enable people to flourish in the workspace, will enable you to get to a point quicker as a job coach where you can start to fade out support and that person really becomes their own. And I've seen it with my own daughter, for her being in the workspace. So she's got her first part-time job working in a gym, which absolutely matches her aspirations around what she wants to do for her future. But because of her learning disability, she finds it really difficult to remember things. And a lot of her work relied on having passcodes. But actually, she's now got some tech that enables her to access that using face recognition. So she doesn't need another password to get to the passwords. Face recognition, she accesses the passwords. She now doesn't need a job coach to help her with that part of the job. How amazing is that? And what the job coach did was about helping to build the rapport, helping to build those relationships, facilitate how an individual gets on with somebody. So I actually think that the frontline training is going to revolutionise the supported employment sector. We're also in a position, Hector, where we are now looking at a number of very large government funded programmes that are utilising the supported employment programme. So we've got Internship Works, which was funding through our Department of Education to double the number of internships. And the Department of Work and Pensions have also announced universal support. Now, the reason I raise these is because they're both using the 5 stage supported employment model at the heart of that delivery. And so it's going to become even more important as the model starts to take off. We're going to start hiring a lot more job coaches that have to play that role between the individual and the employer.
And that's fantastic. And thanks for going in such depth on it. I think what's important to recognise from what you're saying, though, is the technical skills were not a prerequisite of being a work coach traditionally. But as the world of work changes, if you're going to be a work coach nowadays, you need to know basic assistive technology and tools that are going to support people into work. And there's, again, we're going to come back to something we covered with Martha. Like, there is a humility about your cohort that has been wonderful to watch. I mean, I came to your event, Laura, your national conference. I barely got out of the room because there was such a thirst for this knowledge. It was like, tell me more, show me that thing on my phone. How do I do that? All these questions started coming out because fundamentally your cohort want success. They want their place, the people who are placed in work, they want them to be successful. And it's a skill of theirs that they need to pass off on to these individuals in terms of making sure they get the right tech fit. But there was a humility that you brought to it to say it's not like a professional protectionism, as I might call it, of like, oh, well, we're the experts. You were like, hey, we are the experts in this, but certainly not the experts in this. And like, what have you got? So this thirst for it, I think, really came through in the work. We'll dig into it in a bit more detail. But Chris, I really want to turn to you. I had a similar experience. I could barely get out of the room last time I saw you, as we went through some of these, some of the features that were landing with you. But maybe you could just introduce kind of why this is popping at BP at the moment, and what it is you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Hector. And thanks for the overview from my fellow panelists there. That was really interesting to listen to. So at BP, we also are carrying a dose of humility on this all. We don't have all the answers. And so events like this really help us to learn more and do even better. We're also working with people with disability is competing for airtime with many other strands of really important diversity that we try and factor into our working day to day. So it's a journey for us. And as I explained before, we've got tens of thousands of people across 60 different countries. And so really we have to take a really systematic approach to making the progress that we wanted to. And it's a journey and we're getting there. So much work to do. Just talking about a few of the things that we try and think about when we approach things from a systems perspective. So for us, the first thing to do is really importantly and simply, and I think a lot of people listening to this would know how important this is, but selling the business case for diversity and for disability, it's really important to talk, particularly to people involved in talent processes and our leaders in the business, about why this is so important from a profit perspective and value perspective. A lot of people still don't get that. So we carry that narrative quite firmly into our line in order to help people realize what an advantage it can be to service for this. The other things that we do is we try and account for universal design whenever we are reviewing our sort of people policies or procedures globally. We always try and think about how are we going to enable our products to be usable for everyone, not just for people with disability, but for everyone to be as successful as they can or to have as good an experience as they can. We also think really hard about the environments in which people work, the tech that they work with, and also the practices that we roll out day to day for our people. So, for example, we've started introducing neurodiversity-friendly rooms in some of our offices. We have made big changes to some of our offices from a physical accessibility perspective, all with the view to creating a more inclusive environment. Reasonable accommodations is another one, something we take really seriously and think about hard, both from a policy perspective, but also from a cultural perspective, and leaning on our inclusion buzzword. How do we really make line managers think to be as inclusive as possible? We do a lot of awareness and training. So we've got all sorts of learning programs on offer for people. We also, as an example, are now training our retail staff in British Sign Language in our UK division. So testing and trying all these different types of awareness and education angles into our business. We also have fantastic collaboration events like this and partnerships. And with that humility, we need to learn more. So it's really important we keep talking with our partners and looking for help. Hector, from a tech perspective, as an example, Microsoft are fantastic partners. And then it's really important to us that we've got our most senior leadership on side. So we have executive sponsors for disability and accessibility and all of our other diversity angles as well. So that leadership voice is super important. So just a touch of some of the things we're doing within BP, but it's systematic and it's broad scale. If we tackled a business area by business area, you'd never really get there. And so we try and do things at an overarching layer in order to set us up for the best possible success.
So I'm going to sum that up as deliberate, I think, is kind of like how it comes across. So many people are kind of, falling into this. But what I've learned from my engagement with BP is you've got all these different departmental stakeholders, from your IT folks, your design folks, HR now joining the party, your learning team. Everywhere we've met them, there's been this passion to do their bit for disability and accessibility within the business. What I've noticed from kind of our most recent engagements is this has started to become a bit more coordinated. And this word you've just used of value. There is value in having this knowledge and for people to be successful in the workplace and to build that diversity in. There is something tangible about accessibility, as in, D&I's tricky sometimes in terms of, like the value that it's driving. Of course, with accessibility, it is about design as much as it's about people. And there's a kind of the people side and the technology side. And so I quite often joke with HR folks, Chris, I think I said this to you last time I saw you. But, we've got to make the HR folks a bit more techie and we've got to make the techies a bit more human, a bit more human focused. And I think you've really started to see that melting point between your partnership, both with your learning team and with your IT team. And it's been genuinely great to watch, certainly for an organization of your size. When we got to a kind of an inflection point with our own training where people could volunteer to take the badge on accessibility at Microsoft. And there was a tipping point where we just went, look, we're just going to offer this to everybody. We're going to make it required learning. And now what I see across the organization is people doing their bit on accessibility. So a marketing folk will go, I know what to do. I need to make my documentation accessible. Or an events person will say, I need to make my event accessible. So you're just sort of saying this is again, if we're going back to you, Martha, it's like that baseline of knowledge of what you can do. And when people know what they can do, they tend to do it because you're driving that culture. That culture is like, in the same way, a New Yorker, Martha, like to be a New Yorker means to be inclusive. And Chris, you're saying, to be somebody who's working at BP, you've got to value diversity and inclusion. So yeah, there's so many commonalities, I would say, in terms of what you're doing. In terms of maybe leaning into one of those commonalities, I guess justifying people taking the training. How has that been in your organizations? Has that been a kind of a difficult to get going, but once you get going, is it better? Martha, how has that been for you with your partner organizations?
Sure. So with the partner agencies, like I said, we're very new to this, but for a couple of reasons, I think this is inevitable. Number one is the city of New York uses Microsoft products and the tools are there, but I think most people don't know how to use them. And how are they going to find that out if someone doesn't take the time, the effort, and the energy to be able to make sure that everybody's playing from the same playbook at this point? That's why it's so crucial for us to be able to offer these kinds of trainings to the workforce. But I just want to kind of come back to one or two things that I heard as well from Chris when he talks about the leadership. It's crucial to have leadership involved. Our current mayor, Mayor Adams, is, to my knowledge, the first mayor that actually identified as a person with a disability. Someone who has dyslexia, who struggled through all of his academic until he got into college. And he understands that if someone is given the right opportunity, the right tools, and the right experience and support, they can achieve whatever they want. Consequently, he's the mayor of the city of New York. But when you come into an office and you don't know if anybody around you has disclosed as having a disability, you don't know if you feel comfortable enough disclosing if you have a disability, and no one knows the tools that make things accessible and inclusive for you, you're at the same place you were before you got into the role, right? So knowing that there will be the opportunity for thousands of New Yorkers, I say to take the responsibility, because it is the responsibility of all of us to understand how we can be an inclusive and accessible workplace. Earlier before, I think it was even Laura that said, it's always about the person, but the person can't be successful on their own. They need to have the knowledge, the tools, and the support to be able to move forward. And the fact that we have those things already, we have the Microsoft tools in the city of New York. We now are in the process of trying to figure out how can we use the Microsoft training. Who are we going to partner with? Who's going to be the vendor? So we're in those initial stages right now, and I'm thrilled to tell you that later on today I have a meeting to find out how far we are going to go with this. So it's very exciting. I do believe that having the leadership wanting to do this is the most important thing. We have the tools. We have the wherewithal, we have the passion and the drive to do this. Now we need to make sure that we can get the sign off on it, we can move forward, and in a relatively few years, we can help thousands of people learn how to make things accessible, welcome people into their offices and agencies, because the people with disabilities who are going to come into these offices are going to take that training. They're going to support the system. They're going to fly with it, and they're going to help everybody understand the value that Chris talked about, the value that Laura mentioned before about having such, an insightful, experienced individual with a lived experience to know what works, what doesn't, how to make those shortcuts, what to do to make things work appropriately. And for New York City, that has such a huge impact. I'm just thrilled that I had the opportunity to learn about what's possible, because honestly, I did not know that this is a possibility. And my personal and professional goal right now is to make sure that we do this.
And from an employment statistics piece, Laura, there's something interesting here that we've recognized throughout all of the conversations across all of your different programs. When we do this training about the tools and the features and 101 about accessibility and what's possible, people who weren't putting their hand up as somebody with a disability suddenly say, I need this. And they actually start to kind of feel it's okay to start talking more about their own dyslexia or their own color blindness. Some of those more common disabilities that are kind of ever present across all workplaces. And once people are talking about who already is here within an organization, that makes it so much easier for you, Laura, to be taking people into an organization who are new to work, because that disability culture is already starting to pop a little bit. And that's our hope. Genuinely, I think that's our hope, is that if we help organizations to just become that more confident around who's already here with a disability, when that next hiring decision is next to be made about who we're bringing in next time, there's less perceived risk. And it's not risk, but it's less perceived risk about bringing somebody with a disability into an organization, because you've got that good, established knowledge within an organization. So Laura, I want you to know, that when you're kind of, thinking about support employment and placements, we've got BP, we've got New York, and I would argue, certainly from the New York example, we're going to have whole communities ready to be more successful with the placements that you're trying to get going.
Absolutely. I think what we're seeing is a real appetite for this in a way that I haven't seen before. And it's hugely exciting to watch people from every level, from that kind of leadership, but also from that ground up. We're seeing those job coaches that are brand new to supported employment now going, how do I know more about accessibility? Because actually it's going to help me. And if I can access the world and my own job more effectively, then I can show other people how to do that. And it has that ripple effect. And I think it's engaging people in a conversation that they've been too fearful to engage with. So I think tech is also opening up conversations around inclusion in a way that people were a little bit tentative of knowing how to get involved. So I think there's so much potential across the globe. And
I'm passionate because assistive technology and accessibility used to be one of those topics around office work, sitting at a computer. Accessibility, that's where accessibility was. what we're now seeing is you're taking it to the frontline workers, and there's a whole new audience that are going to leverage these tools. And I would argue, certainly from your perspective, Chris, across language, across literacy, across disability, this is not just disability. This is people who are now expected to use technology a bit in their jobs, and you having to address maybe a wider set of exclusions.
Complete game changer. And actually, I'm in India at the moment. We were in the office today talking about people who speak English as a second language, and how technology might change that completely in the future. So I think it's an open door for us that we really need to lean into, and we're certainly thinking about that hard here at BP. And it enables the culture. It's an enabler. It's not the solution. It's an enabler to the culture. And if that's inclusive and accessibility friendly, then you've kind of solved it, right? I think the other great thing about disability is that there's so many use cases, physical, mental, and I think if you can solve for people with disability in all forms, then you've really solved for almost every type of diversity out there. And so for me, it's one of the more important strands to be pursuing, just because of that relevance and the diversity within the diverse strand itself.
If anybody saw me grinning, Chris, as you started talking about yourself in India and the translation, I remember showing you how to translate a slide in PowerPoint, and you're kind of like, show me that again. What did you just press? It was one of my highlights of the year. I loved it. All right. So what a great conversation. And I'm hoping really people picked up not just on your passion and your drive and, your personal delivery, in terms of the work you put into these projects, but also fundamentally the scale. This is what I'm really hoping for, taking accessibility to a much, ambitious, large numbers, 10,000 job coaches, 280,000 employers in New York, and the tens of thousands of BP employees across the world. That's where we should be with accessibility. It doesn't need to be in-depth knowledge. It just needs to be basic knowledge first delivered at scale, and then allow people to get passionate about how much they want to learn on this amazing topic that's kept me excited for 27 years, right? This is a good topic. So firstly, I'm just going to say thank you. You're making the world a better place, and it takes leaders to say, we're going to do this. It is deliberate. It's not accidental. So thank you for what you do. Perhaps if I could just ask you to just give a kind of a closing remark on kind of, where you see this moving forward. I'm going to turn to you first, Martha.
So I've learned that people don't know what they don't know until they're given the opportunity to know it, right? I think that's where we are right now. There's the will, there's the determination, and there's the technology to make New York City an employer of choice, a model employer, by making sure that all of our employees have the 21st century tools they need to succeed and to grow and to change their jobs and to move on. What Laura said earlier, you just don't go someplace and you have a job for the rest of your life. If you learn new tools, if you learn how to do things differently, inclusively, you're taking the work that you're doing and you're making a huge impact. One person at a time, thousands of people together. I really think that the goal for New York City right now is to make sure that we honor that 5-year accessibility plan, but we have to make sure that the folks that are doing the work are trained, are supported, and are productive in making sure that we are a model employer.
Thanks, Martha. Laura.
Thanks, Hector. I think we have an opportunity like we've never had before, and an appetite like that we've never had before, to absolutely be able to bring people and tech together to ensure that everybody that wants to work has the opportunity to do so. And I think by starting with those frontline workers that have day-to-day contact with disabled and neurodivergent people, empowering them to feel confident in this space, imagine the ripple effect that that's going to have. I think there is a movement, a global movement around supported employment, and a recognition that that model works. So the huge potential to take this and actually have accessible tech and accessibility being part of that movement is hugely important as well. And I think if I was going to say anything to anyone is just start. Don't let your own fear of tech be the thing that prevents you from engaging in this space, because I promise you, once you do, it will change your life and it will change the lives of the people that you're supporting. And ultimately, that's what it's all about, right? We just want to get more people into good careers.
Thanks, Laura. Chris, final words.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I guess to complement it, the time feels like now we've got this momentum. And this is when you speed up instead of slow down. So I think it's on all of us as leaders and everyone listening to this call, watching the recording back, to just do their bit. And to Laura's point, let's just get started if you haven't already. We've started and we're not moving as quickly as we'd like, but we're moving. And that feels super good. So I think if we all chip in and do a bit of that, it's the right thing to do. It makes business sense. Let's get after it.
Well, let me reassure you by saying, we're in, we're all in, we're game on. We want to support you in whatever your aims are. We're looking forward. Let's continue to make the progress we have. Thank you for joining us. What a great conversation. I think what I loved most was that everybody was coming from their own sector, the enterprise sector, the government sector, and obviously the workforce for skilling sector as well. Just let's get that baseline knowledge of accessibility into all these industries and we can really make progress. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to move now to my colleague Angela Lean and another one, Prasma Amonka, to talk about what can the tech sector do in this space. We've got to think about what role the tech sector plays both in the hiring of people with disabilities, but also that representation then driving the future accessible experiences that the tech sector delivers. Let's go across to Angela.
Thank you so much, Hector. I'm very excited to be here. As Hector mentioned, we're going to be talking about the tech sector with our colleague Pratama, who's from Singapore. Microsoft has been on a journey to create an accessible and disability inclusive workplace of its own. We still have a lot to learn, although we've started our journey, but we realize that we can't do everything on our own, and that to scale, there's really a lot of power in sort of developing broader motions. So Pratama, who's a director of business strategy, has been leading some amazing accessibility skilling work in Asia. So I'd love to have her tell us more about what she's done.
Hi, Angela. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much for being here. We were so excited to hear about all the good work you've done. Maybe we can start with sort of how the accessibility enabler framework kind of came to be and sort of how it works, and talk about some of the impact you've seen it had in its early stages.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, Angela, for having me here and helping me to share with the larger group. So, Angela, a few years ago here in some of our countries, we launched for the first time ever a program called the Microsoft Enabler Program. And the impetus behind that was threefold. One is that this is a program which is based on the fact and the understanding that tech is key to making an innovative and inclusive world. And we also realize that to develop this tech, we need talented individuals with disabilities to be part of the dev team. And most importantly, this is something that we need to rely on our larger partner ecosystem to be able to scale the work that we're doing. So our partner ecosystem, which creates innovative products on our platform, our cloud, is also a massive potential employer who is hungry for tech talent. So we invited our top commercial partners and local nonprofit organizations in each country and did a consortium-based approach where these three entities work together to improve employability for people with disabilities in the country. So our partners provide the job experiences like shadowing, mentorships, internships, and employment. Our nonprofits help to train our partners with employer workshops on how to be inclusive to PWD. And they are like the single point of contact, the channel to help get to the community. And we, on our part, provide training, consult sessions for the PWD to help prepare for tech roles, conduct a multitude of services to help prepare people for employment, like how to build a strong CV, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Azure, Power BI, and so on, as well as We bring our partners to the table, help train them on accessibility culture, inclusive design. And you know, Angela, it has been amazing. The journey has been huge for us because we have now expanded and we have executed 15,000 trained in inclusive culture. Over 900 people with disabilities have been trained and mentored. Nearly 600 hours of training and workshops have been conducted. We have enabled roles and internships for more than 200 PWD. And it's really now become a movement. It's a movement of a culture of inclusion where our partners are doing their own internal training and building their accessibility strategy. And based on feedback from the community under this Microsoft Enabler program, we have now also included things like structured mentorships for people with disability. So in a nutshell, it's all about building a momentum, a movement, which is being powered by our partners, nonprofits, and the community, Angela.
No, I mean, that's amazing. And the statistics are they sort of speak for themselves. Would love to hear more about sort of your approach to innovation and creating the movement, and also how you think skilling can lead to sort of greater employment. Maybe you could give us some examples of folks who've gone through the program and how they're actually faring now that they've been trained.
Oh, yeah, fantastic question. And thank you, Angela. So, you know, when you reflect on this, we are entering a special time in history with, we have the power and the potential to have great advancements across every sector of our economy and society. It's a new wave of AI. So on a daily basis, when I meet customers, partners, the community, we realize that we are at this amazing historic intersection of opportunity and responsibility to the world around us. Our mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more has never been more relevant or pressing, Angela, and really breaking down barriers and opening doors to a more equitable future. So we know that AI has been a big topic this year. People with disabilities have been early adopters of new technology, and AI innovation will not be any different. So, and again, remember that, it's not one single company or one sector that can solve all of them alone. And I have some real examples and real experiences of how skilling can help people actually improve employment when they are already on the journey or even land employment newly. So, for example, one of the interns that I had in my team, he's deaf and used to communicate only purely with Singapore Sign Language. He joined our team and did many certification exams. He created an app using Microsoft Cognitive Services, which was an assistive tech app, which helped him actually, Angela, to do for the first time ever a presentation in front of a large audience. So he used PowerPoint plus his app. And he then gained confidence, went and applied for some really cool jobs in the government inside of Singapore, and sought some vocal sponsorship from us. And our mentors and our team gave that sponsorship to him. And he finally landed the job, and he's doing really well now. He keeps sending me messages about all the cool tech that he's learning and how he's growing. And this is a very nice example of how a mixture of tech and preparing for employment support as well as mentorship helped accelerate the journey for a person. I have another example where he went through and set up an entrepreneurship in data science. Another one who's actually not early in career. She was already working, but she's neurodiverse, and she needed help to understand how to use PowerPoint better, especially our accessibility features, to be able to deliver a presentation. So what I want to bring out here is that skilling in various forms, whether it is the biggest, deepest tech like cognitive services or basics that you need to use like PowerPoint and tech enablement actually in a job can have a real positive impact in improving confidence as well as employability and career growth.
Wow, no, I love those real life examples. I also was just curious, sort of based on your narrative. I don't imagine this is only applicable to the tech sector. Like I feel like there are learnings to be had across other industries. Can you speak to some of the high level points as to what might another industry take away that they could actually apply in their own realm?
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. We've had experiences where we worked with banks, for example, in helping them create apps that are more accessible, and know very well that it's not just the tech sector; it could be cross-sector. Anybody who creates mobile phone apps, for example, would need that. The fundamental takeaway that I'd like everybody to understand is that we need to improve confidence in hiring, and this Enabler program, our Microsoft Enabler program, has done exactly that. So therefore, the employment opportunities for people with disabilities improves, which increases the pool of tech talent, reduces the digital divide as partners and customers are making inclusive design decisions and learning how to build in accessibility. And most importantly, Angela, let's understand that by empowering people with disabilities to fully participate in the economy, we are increasing our productive population. And statistics show that this can lead to increase and rise in GDP in our countries. So headline here is improve confidence in hiring, and that will lead us to employment opportunities as well as real economic impact to the country.
No, amazing. I mean, so inspiring, and we're so grateful that you're here at Microsoft doing this great work. And thank you, by the way, for sharing your learnings and your insights with the audience. Just wanted to kind of close things out for everybody because we have a bunch of resources for them to sort of examine in case folks are inspired by Pradama and the other panelists. I want to highlight for folks that we have a workplace accessibility starter kit that everybody can refer to. There's also training materials that we make available to anyone who wants more information on accessibility fundamentals. And lastly, we've posted Pradama's enabler framework. So folks can actually learn from her approach and see if they can apply some of the best practices to their own realms. So Pradama, again, thank you so much. We appreciate you participating in all the great stuff you've been doing, and best of luck.
Thank you, Angela. Bye, everybody.